Hey, this is Karen Coach's Corner Chats, and on the episode, I have Ali Hanif. Ali, where are you at and what are you up to?
So right now I'm in Bloomington, Illinois, and I'm currently the assistant coach with Illinois State University's at NCAA Division One women's program.
And is this your first college experience?
No, this is my second college experience. I was with Mid American Nazarene, an NIA program in Kansas City, for a couple of years before I took this full-time position here last summer.
So, first question that comes up is the accent is not Midwestern. So, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Manchester, in England, and I am a Manchester United fan, born and bred. My mom's house is about a mile away from the stadium. So I've grown up around being a Manchester United fan my whole life. And then I started coming to the States in 2012. Over the last close to 10 years, it's kind of gradually become more permanent. And I met my wife here, who's a nurse. And yes, things are kind of snowballed after a couple of years and ended up me making my life out here versus back in England.
What was the impetus to come to the States in the first place?
A bit of a push by one of my old coaches, John, and he basically said, "You've got the summer off from regular coaching and school and stuff, and why not go out to the States and kind of try things out there and see what it's like?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And I came out with a company called Challenger Sports. They're the largest soccer camp company in the US, and they've been around a long time. I'd say quite a lot of the British coaches who are now full time in the US, most of them have come through Challenger Sports one way or another. Um, but yeah, so came out with Challenger my first summer. When you kind of come out for your first summer contract, they randomly assign you to a region, and I got assigned to the head office region in Kansas City. So I did not know where Kansas City was. Um, my first soccer camp ever was in a small town called Nevada in Iowa. And when I first got the contract a couple of weeks before leaving, I thought Nevada was in Nevada, Las Vegas, not Nevada, Iowa. So I didn't realize that until I actually got out here and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not in Vegas. I'm in Kansas City, first of all, and then drove up to Nevada, Iowa. And I had my first American experience among the cornfields in Iowa. And that's how it kind of started.
What was that kind of culture shock of going from the hustle and bustle of Manchester to big open plains and cows and what have you?
Different. Didn't quite. I hadn't used sunscreen a lot before then. So my first week, it was like the first week of June 2012. It was like 104 that week or something like that. It was crazy, and I got sunburnt real bad that first couple of days. So that was fun. It was just different. The way people talked, food, interactions. Midwestern people kind of stereotypically everyone's nice, which is definitely different from a city life. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a culture shock that took me a couple of weeks to get used to.
Growing up in Manchester, was soccer something that was just part of your livelihood right from being even this a small little tyke running around?
No, actually, so soccer's around you no matter what you do in England, in Manchester especially. It's just there. I wasn't interested in soccer until I was about 14. I played a bit of basketball. I was tall-ish, and I played a bit of basketball, and that's kind of it. My family were not interested in me participating in sports, and that was a culture thing. And then I had my PE teacher at school in high school. One day, just kind of pushed me into goal and gave me some gloves, and he was a goalkeeper, and his name was Mark Evans, and he just said, "Hey, try it out, see what happens." And I kind of just fell into being a goalkeeper and kind of fell into playing soccer, and just kind of snowballed from there, really.
What was the reaction of your family, like parents and what have you, when you started to kind of get that like the soccer goalkeeper bug and start doing it more and more?
Didn't go down well when I turned 15 and broke my wrist.
Oh.
So my mom wasn't a fan of breaking any body parts. That wasn't great. It took a while, I'll be super honest. So from a cultural background, being Pakistani, my family being Pakistani, it was definitely a culture shift, because traditionally, like if you're Pakistani, Indian, South Asian, you don't really touch soccer, football. You don't really touch it. It's kind of you know focus on getting a degree and being a stereotypically becoming a doctor or becoming a psychologist or a lawyer or something in those realms, and going into sport isn't really a thing. So it took a little while. I was playing and I was enjoying it, and I was playing at a good level, and I was playing for club, playing for college. It was going pretty well. And then at the end of so just a little background, school in England works a little bit differently. So you're in high school from 11 to 16, and then you're in college from 16 to 18, and then you start university at 18, 19. So in college, what you do is, typically at high school, right, you'll do a bunch of subjects, like generic, so mathematics, English, history, law, whatever. When you get to college, you kind of hone down to 4 subjects, and that helps inform what degree you're going to pursue. In my opinion, it's a better way, but that's just my opinion. It helps you kind of zone in a bit more to what you want to pursue in a degree. So I started off my first year of college with English literature, law, history, and classic civilizations, which is basically Greek mythology and stuff like that. And at the end of my first year, kind of figured out I did not enjoy it. It wasn't fun. And so very quietly, I changed my subjects to pursue sport and coaching and sports psychology, anatomy, etc., without telling my mom. So my mom found out 6 months into me actually kind of getting started that I'd actually done all of this without telling her, that I changed everything and kind of changed the plan. And I wanted to pursue sports in general, and I just got into coaching at 16, and it was just becoming a more of a pathway for me. And I thought, hey, I want to try this out. I want to see if this works, and I enjoy being fully invested in this. So that's what I decided to do. My mom's support came along a little bit later.
I love the fact that you kind of took that fork in the road and pursued kind of what you wanted, knowing kind of the culture and all that stuff behind it. The other thing was, so at what age, at what point it does the decision to go from coaching and stuff in Manchester in that area become, let's start looking over at the US?
So my background, I was very lucky in my start to coaching. So I was involved in Manchester United with their programs, with their community programs. I was playing soccer around them, and a bunch of other stuff was going on. So they kind of helped me get the lead into coaching. So I was very fortunate that I'm very lucky that I had all these mentors, resources, and a professional club behind me, versus other people that might get their start into coaching, which might be a little bit different. So it was a lot easier for me to kind of start thinking about what I wanted to pursue, how I wanted to look. And being around a professional environment with Manchester United and kind of all the facets of the club, I slowly kind of started to learn that this is great. It's amazing to be around a professional team. It's amazing to be around, be in the same places like Wayne Rooney and Ronaldo there at the time, and Edwin van der Sar and all these great players, and fantastic coaches in the academy, in the community departments, just great people. And I kind of started to learn that after my first summer in the States, I wasn't going to get the freedom to do what I felt like I wanted to do as a coach and explore as a coach in that environment. It just wasn't, because Manchester United is an historic club. It's done things a certain way for a really long time. And I've just felt personally that my freedom was limited in that space as a coach. And I wanted to kind of try my own thing out and pursue my own space to make mistakes without feeling like I had to do things a certain way. I wanted to have the freedom to try things out and make mistakes and kind of find my own methodology, etc.
How impactful was that experience of being at Manchester? I mean, what were some of the things that you took away from that experience? Not one, that the idea of I need more freedom type of thing, but what were some of the things that you took away and said, when I go to wherever it is, States or back home, that I want to continue to take from that? Because you like talk about professional, huge club, tons of success. What were some of the things that you pulled away from that you said, those are really cool and I want to continue to use those in my coaching career?
I'll give you the very first thing that sticks in my head. John Shields, who's the head of the Manchester United Foundation, who's also a big mentor of mine. He actually just got an MBE from the Queen for services to football. So shout out to John. But he basically used to tell me all the time, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're already 10 minutes late. And I live by that. So my mom says it all the time to me now because I said it so much at home. So it kind of a little thing. I'm really adamant on having everything ready for a session before anybody turns up. My kind of focusing how I structure my sessions, how I build them, what the setup is like, etc., all kind of stems from that kind of little piece in my head of always been early and always been ready and always been prepared. That's always been in my head, and that's kind of how my head works. The other piece is pursuing the excellence and pursuing to be better all the time, pursuing to try and do the best of everything that you've got and how you go about it and making it as professional as it seems, regardless of, people say that if you're working at rec soccer, for example, it's rec soccer. Like, why would you plan sessions? Why would you have everything ready? Why would you know what I mean? Just little kind of tidbits, little bits that kind of people kind of just go with emotion sometimes. For me, it was always, no matter what level I was working at, who I was working with, everything had to be set up in a professional manner. Whether I'm working with 3-year-olds, which I spent a fair amount of time doing, or working with professional athletes, NWSL players, MLS players, doesn't matter who I'm working with. Like, I want to make sure that everything was professional. So that's another piece that I kind of took away from that environment.
When you were over in the States and you were doing the challenger type thing, what was the transition from, like, what was the next step? Like, after challenger, what was your next kind of experience with American soccer?
So I was working with Challenger doing soccer camps. So that was 2012, 2014, 2015, 2016. I wanted to try and start dipping my toe outside of the camp scene, which is predominantly what Challenger is known for. So got into coaching teams, working with some rec teams, getting into the club scene in Kansas City. And I don't know how much you know about Kansas City, but there is a high volume of very well-run clubs in the Kansas City area. And to a lot of people, Kansas City is the capital of soccer in the US because it's a heartland. It's the middle of the country. It is booming with clubs, facilities, the US National Training Center, Sporting Kansas City being one of the first clubs to have a soccer-specific stadium, the NWSL team now. So it's a booming metropolis of soccer. So I started dipping my toes into club scene, private sessions, being around college players, working in the WPSL, working with NWSL players. I just started to kind of figure out where I might fit in with that, or what did I want to push to pursue. Working with ODP, working with the different levels of college, and working with the competitive clubs as well, ECNL, etc. Kind of decided to go into those realms a little bit.
What does, you use the word dipping? How does one dip into, like, how do you go about connecting with college players or being part of ECNL or some of these clubs? Did you just kind of reach out? What were some of the ways that you put yourself in those opportunities?
One of the things for me was, I think, understanding the value of time. And with that, before I started getting paid at Manchester United to coach, I had to do so many hours of volunteering to like meet thresholds, and this was a new program that they were launching. So with that, in under 2 years, I did 750 hours of volunteering while I was still at school, because I kind of found out the fact that if I really wanted to be all in, I was going to be all in, no matter what that meant. So for me, it was the same. I kind of applied that to everything else that I do. So people have asked me over the years, I end up doing quite a few things, and people ask me why or how I'm managing to do multiple pieces. For me, it was always been cognitive of what I was getting my hands onto or what I was stepping into, and understanding that I had to be able to fully apply myself to that area, and being happy that I could fully apply myself to that area. So I started off just talking to people, networking, giving up my free time when it was available to just help. And that kind of just led to things. So, for example, when I started with the WPSL team in 2017 with Hugh Williams, who's quite a big figure in Kansas City as a coach. He was the general manager of the FC Kansas City team, and he's been coaching in Kansas City for 30 years or something like that. He got me involved with the WPSL team through Derek Shaw, who's the assistant at KU, and he was also the vice president of Challenger. They got me involved with the WPSL team, and that was voluntary. So they were like, hey, make it down when you can. It's just during the summer, come down like, one night a week, and they were training 4 nights a week. And I was there every single night, because I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. And at the end of the 2018 season, she had just taken over the local club. FC Kansas City had moved to Utah, and the youth club of FC Kansas City was staying in Kansas City. So it was quite a large youth club. So Hugh took over the club and came to me and said, hey, I'm looking for someone to come in to be the lead goalkeeper coach. And he'd been around me for the last 2 years, knew I could coach goalkeepers, knew my experience. So he took a shot on me and said, hey, let's do this. So that me giving time gave an opportunity for someone else to give me time, and led to opportunities for me to build my resume, build my methodology, build the opportunity to impact more goalkeepers. And and under the 4 years I had the role, I ended up officially becoming the director of goalkeeping. We went from having 10 to 20 goalkeepers a week, going up to 75 goalkeepers a week. And that went from me doing it on my own to having 3 goalkeeper coaches working for me. So I'm kind of building this consistency of providing quality goalkeeper coaching for these club goalkeepers, that under no cost to them, instead of them having to maybe go and pay private lessons or go and pay fees to a goalkeeping school. Even though that the local goalkeeping school, a big shout out to Andy Grunenbaum, ex-MLS goalkeeper, who runs Union 30 goalkeeping in Kansas City, who's a good friend of mine and, in my opinion, a fantastic coach. He had a lot of goalkeepers that I was working with and vice versa. But for him, it was a big value for money. Like, he wanted to make sure goalkeepers, if they're paying to get extra training, they're getting good coaching and good development. So Andy's done a phenomenal job in Kansas City over the years to develop so many good goalkeepers. But yeah, for me, it was just giving kids value for that and giving them an opportunity to develop, where it's an underserving part of most clubs. Over the last 10 years, I think, is grown. But for a lot of clubs, even ECNL clubs, GA clubs, whatever you want to call them, still a lot of them around the country don't have dedicated goalkeeper coaches, because the way a lot of clubs look at it is, if you have someone who's dedicated to being a goalkeeper coach and they're not coaching a team, that team's the one that's bringing in the money to pay that coach. So if you're paying a goalkeeper coach to just do goalkeeping, that money's coming directly out of the club's pocket. It's not coming from a team of players paying money towards actually funding that role. So fortunately, it's changed. Clubs are more thoughtful and more pushing on having someone in that dedicated role to help develop the goalkeepers in the club. And it's a big value for kids looking for a club, that they want to be somewhere where they're going to have that parents are going to have that value for their money. They're going to get specific training for that position.
One of the things that I loved about what you said was talking about the other goalkeeper coach and how you were sharing players, and you seem really, you think highly of him and vice versa. How big has that been for your experience? Is it what they call the goalkeeper union? Is it really like keepers always have each other's back type of thing? Or is that something you found just in terms of just coaching that women and men are always willing to help out and give each other support?
For the most part, I don't think there's any facet of the soccer community or any other community where everyone's always willing to help. But I think networking, getting understanding with people is super important. Me and Andy just kind of met through happenstance, and we got talking, and slowly over the years it kind of built into a good relationship where if he had my club goalkeepers were working with him privately as well, we would converse constantly about how their development was going, what each of us needed to do to help that goalkeeper, how we could try and stay on the same wavelength as much as we could, so that it wasn't two completely different pieces of information, because that can happen with goalkeeper coaching, that one goalkeeper coach works one very specific way and another one works a very different way. So you don't want to confuse the goalkeeper. And then it's just a respect thing as well, but also just an understanding, and communication was super important. Andy will laugh about this, but a fair few times me and him ended up in his driveway talking for 2 hours straight, arguing over positioning, or arguing over hand positioning, and just different things we had different opinions on. So that was always a fun thing to be able to do. The other piece to that is the goalkeeper union as such. Like, I'm part of the United Goalkeeping Alliance, which is a group of goalkeeper coaches, which is always growing, run by Eric Eisenhurt, who's based out of Pennsylvania. We're a group of goalkeeper coaches from all across the United States and Europe and the world really now, who kind of pull ideas, pull roles, pull recruitment, pull goalkeeping education to as many people as we can, because unfortunately goalkeeping education in a formal sense isn't really apparent in the US right now. And I give you an example. US soccer doesn't have an official goalkeeping license right now. They haven't had an official goalkeeping license, I think, in close to 6 or 7 years now. I heard that they were building one. I just don't know where that's at right now. I don't think anyone really does right now where that's at. United soccer coaches have goalkeeping licenses. In my opinion, they're too far and few between. They're just not done regularly enough. And I think that might be to do with need. It might be to do with, funding. There's a lot of different things that go into that. So formal goalkeeping education is really difficult to come by. So a lot of goalkeeper coaches will pull their way out of that and decide that I'm right now in the middle of my UEFA B goalkeeping license with the Scottish Football Association. But it's expensive. Doing a license with a foreign football association is expensive because the license fee is obviously higher. You typically will have to travel to that country to finish off the license. So, flights, hotels, gets expensive. So formal education is difficult, and then you'll get cowboy goalkeeper coaches is one way to put it, I suppose. But, it's one of those things that if you've played the position, you definitely have a good idea of what it takes. But being able to coach the position and get very technical, get very detailed, think about the tactical repercussions, the psychological element of it as well, is really difficult to be able to pass on to someone else if you've not been in the position to have it consistently. And how many colleges have goalkeeper coaches? How many youth clubs have goalkeeper coaches? So it's just kind of funnel, right? If you're a kid who just played goalkeeper, went to college but didn't have a consistent goalkeeper coach at college, how much education formally do you have to be able to pass that knowledge on technically, tactically, psychologically to another goalkeeper? You might know it, but you might not be able to pass it on appropriately for their learning needs, etc. So that's kind of where formal education comes in to help you kind of hone that in a little bit. But it's hard to come by when it's not available.
The other thing you mentioned was going from 10 to 20 keepers to 75. How in the world do you run sessions with that many? Do you break them up into smaller groups? What does that look like? Because of course, goalkeeping is such a, not, I don't want to say an individual kind of spot, but it is a very individualistic. So how do you deal with such large groups? How does a goalkeeper coach deal with that?
So first of all, dividing them by ability, age, and the level they're currently playing at. So our ECNL goalkeepers will practice together. Competitive goalkeepers like Heartland, which is a local league, Division 1 goalkeepers will practice together, etc. Kind of goes down that route. Age and ability comes into it. Ability is more assessment based. That will take a couple of weeks before you can move people around into groups. Hiring good goalkeeper coaches to be able to kind of pass on my methodology and what I wanted for a club methodology. So I brought on Ian Hodge, who was a Division 1 goalkeeper, phenomenal coach. I'd been through the level of being a youth goalkeeper at a good level, being a Division 1 college goalkeeper, started off at a Division 3 school, ended up at Division 1 school. So he was brilliant to bring on board with me. Kaylin Williams, in my opinion, I think one of the best young goalkeeper coaches around in the Kansas City area right now. She played for Vladko Andonovsky, so the US women's head coach at the club level in Kansas City. Ended up then going to Eastern Michigan and playing there for 4 years. Had a phenomenal career at Eastern Michigan. Came back, has played semi-professionally and professionally in other countries. And she was just hungry to coach, hungry to learn. And she came over to work with me and she's done a phenomenal job. And then I had a couple of other coaches here and there as well, but those two specifically, we had meetings, we got on the same page, we agreed on the methodology, we agreed on how we were gonna educate, how we were gonna coach. Ratio of goalkeeper coach to goalkeepers was really, really important. I think when you go past 1 and 8 to 10 with goalkeeping specifically, really difficult to get your message across because you can't really be specific to individuals because there's just so many, and technique is so broad and inconsistencies. So it's really hard to catch them when you have so many goalkeepers. So we tried to keep our ratio down. That was really important. So when we did that, our biggest session, we had 31 goalkeepers or so, 32 goalkeepers in 1 hour block. We would divide them up and we would have 8 to 9 per coach. So what we would typically do we would run, if we were doing a specific exercise on a specific topic, we would do a kind of I don't know what the best way to put it is, a master demo, where we would have, I would pick out specific goalkeepers to run the demo. And then we would split off into our groups. And then the coaches can focus on ability and level and maybe tweak the exercise to that ability and level that they're working with. And that's how we would typically do it. So we ran goalkeeping year round, which was the first as well. Again, because when it comes back to club politics as such, is if you're paying for an indoor space for goalkeepers, those kids are not paying extra money for goalkeeping. So who's funding the paying for that indoor space? Mm-hmm. That comes into it. Fortunately, the KC Athletics, who I was working with, were really, really good about understanding why we needed to make sure we're doing consistent goalkeeper training. So they took care of the space. They've got a space, enough room to work with that many goalkeepers. And that was consistent output from the club, which is a really good place to be when you have a club on the same wavelength as you.
So here you are. It sounds like you have an amazing staff. You're crushing it. Director of goalkeeping. What then becomes, what's the next step in your coaching journey at that point?
So I ended up, I was doing my I've done my license with the FA back home in England, and then I started on the US route as well. I was doing the US D license, with a phenomenal group of coaches. We had the trying to remember now. A couple of NIA schools in Kansas City had their assistants on it and the head coaches on it. Division 1 schools. I'm trying to remember names right now. Names are eluding me, but there were some great coaches that were kind of pursuing the US route right now. So I was on that course, coming to the end of it, it was going great. And then the head coach of the local NIA school, Mid-American Nazarene, actually my wife's alma mater as well, they were on the course with me and we just got chatting, and they were looking for someone to come do goalkeeper coaching. I wasn't looking to work in college. I didn't have the time at the time, and I was busy with a full-time job and club and everything like that. And it just kind of happened. They were just like, we want someone to come down, once, twice a week, work with the goalkeepers. I was like, sure, yeah, I think I can make it work. Yeah, we'll try it out. Got down there, and I was like, you know what, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna go all in. So if you asked anybody else there, they would probably think I was full-time. I was making it work, so I was basically full-time. So I was there every single night, every single day. I was at training after work, and then had two phenomenal goalkeepers there, Kaylee and Pilar, and two different goalkeepers. One was an American kid from Vegas who played at a really good level at ECNL, and then obviously ended up at Mid-America. And another goalkeeper was came from Spain, a different type of goalkeeping. So they were just a fun group of goalkeepers to work with, and it was a fun group of players. So we had a phenomenal first year. They just got a new head coach, Bryce McClanahan, who's still there now. And another assistant who had never coached college before, Alvi, and myself. So the three of us were like, okay, let's see what we can do here. So we had a great year. First year was we had a phenomenal year in conference. We ended up missing out on the regular season conference championship by a loss, just one loss, lost as a title. Went to nationals for the first time in 4 years, to the opening round, and it was just a great year. Kaylee, my goalkeeper, who's our starter, won Player of the Week, I think 5 times that season. Won National Player of the Week as well. Hadn't played a game the year before in her sophomore year. In her freshman year, didn't play a single game. Got to her sophomore year, became the starter, and just had a breakout phenomenal year. With an understudy and a freshman in Pilar, who was and is a phenomenal goalkeeper. So it just kind of worked out, and the group of players we had there were great. We ended up going from not being ranked consistently to being ranked nearly every single week in the top 25 in the country. And that 2019 year was just a great year. It really was. And then I just kept working at that. I got into ODP in 2020 with Kansas Youth Soccer, with their DOC, Paul Fabry, who was awesome. Paul met with me for coffee and wanted to get me involved in ODP. I wanted to be involved in ODP. I kind of knew a little bit about ODP, and Paul was changing the way ODP ran in Kansas to make it more consistent, more prominent, more a stepping stone for players versus a just go if you want to go, but you don't have to go sort of thing. Like, it's not really going to help you. He wanted to make it into a stepping stone for players, for development. So got involved. Andy, who I mentioned before, who runs Union 30 goalkeeping, he was also doing ODP with goalkeepers. So me and him just got chatting, and we kind of started doing ODP goalkeepers together, and that was great. And yeah, this thing kind of spiraled a little bit, and in a really good way. Coaching college, coaching ODP, had a full-time job, running camps and managing over $250,000 in business. That side of it was one thing, and then coaching and everything like that. And it was, then I inherited a 05 girls team as well, which kind of came on top of that, which actually was just great. I only ended up having them for a season, It was awesome. We ended up in Division 1 as a brand new team. Was a tough division to play in. Had a really good year. Won Missouri President's Cup with nobody thinking that we were, President's Cup is great, and that nobody thinking we were going to even get to the regional, get to the quarterfinals, anything like that. So we won President's Cup for regionals with a brand new team. That was great. That was a different facet of me challenging myself a little bit in running a team myself, and kind of going through those steps as well. And yeah, so that kind of spiraled over a couple of years, and then ended up, I hadn't coached a team on my own for a couple of years, because I was coaching at the college level in England and had a team at my old college, and then kind of stopped coaching a team for a little while to focus on goalkeeping. I just wanted to kind of pour myself into that a little bit, and then that group I had with Casey Athletics with the 05s they were great. Great group of girls, great parents, kids who were committed, who wanted to learn, who wanted to be better, and that team's ended up having players progress into the ECNL team. So we were one under the ECNL team, so had players progress into the ECNL team. That team is players also, most of them are still playing now. That was kind of the plan. I was going to carry on working with them and kind of building that team up. And then January into February, etc. Last year, I got into a conversation with Illinois State after just applying for a job, and that kind of snowballed into Illinois State offering me a position in March last year, and I was like, okay, whoa, this is going to be different. To the opportunity to move from Kansas City, which has been home for 8 years, leave kind of everything I know, everything I know, my wife knows, our family knows, our dogs know. Kind of, I have 2 dogs. I talk about them all the time. But yeah, so that was a big step for us to do that. And for me, it was, I want to be challenged. I want to push myself. I want to be in this next step environment. I want to be around the staff at Illinois State, and they were great. Head coach Brad Sylvie, fantastic coach, great human being. I felt like he was someone I could connect with, and someone I think I could work really well with, and he could challenge me to be better. And then Rihanna Kreutz, who's the assistant, who's a phenomenal coach, a person who has their heart on their sleeve, and is just completely invested in soccer and completely invested in Illinois State soccer, because she was a player here. And it was just for me, it was a great next step. So I had to step away from ODP, from my club, from my team, from college there, from my day job, from private sessions I did with kids, to kind of take that step. And it was difficult. It was hard. But it was the next step. I had to kind of make that decision with my wife that we felt like it was going to be the next step.
One of the things you mentioned earlier about the 2 keepers at the college being different, one from like Vegas and one from Spain. What were the differences about them?
Well, first of all, their training environments have been completely different. There is a style of coaching, I'm going to say, like you're going to have a way of coaching that a lot of American coaches will coach, and that's very broad to say that, because there's so many different styles of goalkeeping, there's so many different styles of coaching, but her environment was different versus a goalkeeper brought up in Spain. Very different environment, and I'm saying that from a tactical standpoint, from a technical standpoint, and from where the emphasis is on those 2 pieces. Like, what are you going to overemphasize technically and tactically in a environment in Spain versus what are you going to technically and tactically emphasize in an environment in the US? So that was the big differences. Ability of distribution, big difference. Ability in shot stopping, decision making, holding onto the ball, not holding onto the ball, dealing with crosses. All these pieces were just a little bit different. So I had an interesting conversation with the assistant at KU a couple of months ago, Kelly Miller, who's another fantastic coach. We had a really good conversation. We were talking about he typically has about 4 goalkeepers on his roster, and I hope Kelly doesn't mind me mentioning this, but we were talking about just different types of goalkeepers and how that kind of ties into the Division 1 environment. And for him, it was his style of goalkeeping was, Ali, my 2 goalkeepers that get the majority of minutes, they train together, and then the other 2 that are not quite getting as many minutes, they train separately. Because for him, 4 different types of goalkeepers in one environment was just so different. It was so hard to get the coaching element consistently to those goalkeepers. So he decided that it was better for him to have 2 of them training at the start of the practice and the other 2 are with the team, and then they switch, so that he could be more honed in on their style of goalkeeping and what they were doing, versus trying to change them into trying to fit a square in a circle, basically. It just didn't work. So I found that really intriguing. That's the way he took that, with having that many goalkeepers and also having that many different styles of goalkeeping.
The one thing you mentioned about the coaches that you're with now, hard on their sleeve, will challenge you. Not even like mentions of tactics or really good at, the coaching side. How important are those types of like character traits of being passionate about, Illinois State and being able to challenge one another and hold people accountable and all that when it comes to building a staff and a program?
Every head coach is different. Every head coach's opinion is different. I think I've learned that, been around a couple of different head coaches. I think it's important that, I think at any level, whether you're working with a 3-year-old to you're working with a 19-year-old to working with a pro, I think as a coach, in my opinion, you have to show that you're passionate. You have to show you're invested. Me personally, I am constantly smiling because, hey, I'm pretty lucky. I'm doing what I love to do every single day, and I know that I own the fact that I get to do my favorite thing in the world all the time. The other piece is, I feel like passion is infectious to the environment, and I think the environment is everything, especially at the college level. The environment informs culture, it informs team chemistry, it informs technical and tactical performance on the field. The environment is everything, and I think having the right people to inform that environment and keep that environment accountable is really, really important. So, with that said, that I want to make sure my goalkeepers know that I am pumped up for them. I'm hyping them up. I am, my goalkeepers will say this off the bat right now. Like, I am constantly buzzing and smiling and hyping them up in training and games, because I'm their advocate as a goalkeeper coach. And, if you watch any of my, I post a lot of my training videos on Instagram. And if you watch that, you'll hear me shouting or screaming or like just going, what a save, or etc., hyping them up as much as I can, because helps their confidence, helps their environment, helps their mentality as a goalkeeper. And I think that can be translated at any level. When you've got a 8-year-old goalkeeper who is just starting off trying out this thing where he or she's got to put on gloves and got to stop a ball going past them. You've got to find a way to give them confidence when goals going. You've got to find a way to, and one way is to do it through passion. Show them that you care. Show them that you're going to be happy for them. You're going to be sad for them. You're going to be invested in them. Whether you work with them for a week, whether you work with them for 10 years, that leaves an impression on people. The same way passionate coaches left impressions on me, I still took their values forward in what I do with my coaching. So John Shields was one of my mentors. Him saying 10 minutes early and 10 minutes late is something that's passionate to him about timekeeping and being organized and being structured. That led onto my coaching and the way I coach. Another guy, Andy Smith, was the academy coach at Manchester United, now works for Manchester City. He every Friday I was with him, kind of learning to coach. He'd teach me a new move, and he would tell me every week that I had a week to learn the move, and I had to learn it. He would give me a different one, and that just kind of brought into me a sense of being creative in what I do, and always never stopping learning and never stopping wanting to learn. And I'm a goalkeeper, but I like juggling. I like messing around with moves. I like being challenged and trying to do a new skill. That's just, the creative side of my mind is really important to me. I think it definitely helps inform the way I structure my sessions, the way I have to get creative when you thought you were going to have 4 goalkeepers at training, you only have 1. You have to kind of manipulate things and be able to make things work, and be creative in the way your sessions run. That definitely helps. So, and then just a whole host of other coaches that kind of informed me, and that came from passion. It came from people loving what they were doing. So Rihanna does that all the time. She's just heart and sleeve and loves it. Brad's the same, very much so, in terms of he's loves soccer, loves football, loves the game, wants to, and it comes from silly things like, you've got 5 minutes before training is about to start, let's just quickly go and play crossbar challenge and see who wins. Or you're trying to nutmeg someone during training and they've got to do 2 push-ups, and little tidbits like that kind of inform that environment and kind of help with the passion and kind of help with keeping things alive and keeping things buzzing. So, I mean, I always joke to the girls at Illinois State, I always joke to them because I'm notorious for trying to nutmeg people. And I always have a laugh with them about this, because now every time I walk past them with a ball, they flinch or they'll try and close their legs. And I was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted the fear that you knew I was going to meg you, but I won't do it. But you just got the fear of it. But that's just funny, and it's passion, and it's just like, just kind of getting into those little bits of soccer. So we always have a good laugh about that. Now they're constantly trying to get me back all the time, and when they do, you should hear them cheer, because they're just, and again, it informs a passion. That's just one of the ways I look at it anyway.
The other thing you talked about was the move from Kansas and Missouri up to where you are now. You left your wife's alma mater, the dogs you mentioned. How important were those conversations with your wife about making this move to Illinois State and kind of moving the whole family to where they are now?
It was, I mean, for me, my wife, it was, she knows I love what I do. She knows I'm so invested. She's watched me, come home late at 11 o'clock and plan sessions and be out the door by 7 a.m. or leave to get to a practice an hour early because I want to just make sure things are correct, and, all these other little tidbits and stuff. And I'm very fortunate she's been so supportive of me. And the same way, my wife's she's a nurse. She works in ER. She works harder than anybody I know. She loves what she does because she helps people. Could I do what she does? No way. She is in that place, and I think that's relatable in the support and in helping people. The importance of, as a human being, being able to impact others. I think that's my calling as a person, is I want to be able to impact people the same way people impacted me growing up. And for my wife, it was just having conversations about, is this right for my career? Is it right for what I want to be able to achieve? Is it right for us as a family? That would we be able to make this work? Would we be able to make these sacrifices, to the sacrifice of change to make this work? And it's not been easy. It's been difficult. Her family is still in Kansas City, so it's been difficult, and we've had bumps, we've had highs and lows, and we've been communicating and working on things and getting better at having understanding is really important, I think, in any marriage, in any relationship. So she's been amazing to support me the way she has.
And then I want to go full circle. At the beginning of your journey, Mama Bear was like I'm not sure if this is the direction I want you to go in terms of playing, broken wrist, all that. You go and start taking classes that go in toward coaching without mom knowing. Here you are at a large campus doing your thing, loving it. You got a wife, dogs, all that good stuff. How excited is mom now for where you're at?
She never liked the fact that I'm away from, she's still home, but this is home now and that sort of thing. But my mom came around, and I was very fortunate that my mom, and I have a twin sister as well, who's pursuing her own passions, completely opposite to what I do. My sister, she's a film editor, so she works from movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And again, not really a career choice that from a cultural standpoint is taken upon. But yeah, she came around to understand it. She came around to get it and understood this, what makes me happy. And she kind of got to that point where she was like, she understood that this makes me happy. My mom probably never quite understand soccer, not quite ever understand the tactics, the coaching, and all that other stuff. For her, the most important thing was, are you happy? Are you enjoying it? Yeah. Okay, that's all she needs to know. Her biggest thing was, before I did anything else, I had to make sure I got my degree. I had to be the first person in my family to get a bachelor's, and that's what I did. So I got my degree from Manchester Metropolitan University in England, in coaching and sports development. Was a difficult 3 years at university because I was still trying to juggle a lot, and university was good, but found areas of it tough, like anybody does. But yeah, it was a kind of full circle moment, I suppose. My mom's still not been over to the US yet, so 9 years later, she's still not been over here yet. So that's something we're hopefully going to correct in the next couple of months to a year or so. We're going to be able to change that. She doesn't like hot weather, so when you're in Kansas, especially when it's getting up to 104, 105 in the summers, it's not a place to be.
Well, I would say now, being where you are in Illinois, a little bit cooler.
Yeah, right now it's the 40s, so it's more like England than anything else, with the rain that we keep having and the wind and everything else. But no, it comes on full circle, and for me, the kind of next steps to that was always going to be from a cultural standpoint, being able to inform more kids of a South Asian heritage that this was an avenue that they could pursue. It definitely has grown phenomenally in England. I know just recently, the first ever coach of South Asian heritage was on staff with the England national team. So that was a big milestone from an underrepresented group in coaching, and that's a really, really good milestone. I still think that people could broaden their horizons and looking out at the US as an option, going to other countries as an option to kind of push their coaching boundaries. That's something that's still been pursued. But the flip side to it is, as much as you want to advocate for your heritage and for your culture and for what you've grown up in, it's hard to find the balance sometimes in also focusing on what you want to achieve and not have that as a thing in the background. Like, I don't want to be known as a Pakistani coach. I don't want to be known as a South Asian coach. I want to be known as a coach. I want to be known as Ali as a coach. Period. Regardless of anything else, being British, being like any of those things. I want to be known as a coach. And I still remember a long time ago, an old friend of mine told me, who was an academy coach for Manchester United, Louis, who's been at United for a really long time. Louis used to tell me that I had to make a decision if I was going to be a goalkeeper coach, if I was going to be a field coach. And I always used to go back at him with that. And I used to say, I think I could do both. I think I could figure it out and be able to be equally as knowledgeable and equally as effective in both roles. And that's what I wanted to do. So when I kind of got into the college game, I wanted to be known, and a lot of goalkeeper coaches feel like this, that they don't want to be pigeonholed as a goalkeeper coach. You want to be known as an assistant coach who also works with the goalkeepers, is very good at working with the goalkeepers, but you can also contribute to other areas of the program. Some goalkeeper coaches might feel differently. They might just want to be okay with just being a goalkeeper coach, and that's completely fine. In my opinion, I want to be able to be a bit more broader in what I do as a coach.
Ali, this has been such an awesome chat. If people want to follow along with you and connect, you mentioned putting videos on Instagram and what have you.
Yeah.
What are some ways that people can connect and follow your journey at Illinois State?
Yeah, so on Instagram, my handle is Coach Ali H, just one word. And on there, kind of, I'm always posting. I'll post the session I've done based on periodization, etc. The session I'm doing, I'll actually kind of I like breaking it down because I get feedback from other goalkeeper coaches. I get feedback from goalkeepers. I get feedback that helps inform my coaching. I get challenged on why I do things, which is great as a coach. I want to be challenged for me to completely understand why I did something or get perspective to why I might be changing something. But I'll break down the session and I'll say what I did in my activation, in my warm-up, what I did in my unannounced part of my practice, the technical part of the practice, so the announced part of the practice, the live part of the practice, like kind of what I did and why I did it. And then at the bottom of that kind of blurb, I'll put down any kind of thoughts I had on the session, questions. I try my best to take to my goalkeepers. But one thing I do right now, and I've got really consistent with, is I build out my session plan and then I'll put it at the field with my goalkeepers so my goalkeepers can have a look at the session before they jump into the session. So they have an idea what we're working on, what's gonna happen, how things are gonna work. They're a bit more informed, and I think that's important. With that being said, that gives them a chance to kind of process and then ask me questions, and then challenge me too. Like, so saying, like, hey coach, like, I like that exercise, but I think we could have changed it to maybe make it more focused towards this piece or this team that we're playing, that they might be really good at getting the ball to the byline and cutting it back, which is what we're doing this week. We're doing a lot of cutback sessions. So that's really good. Like, my two goalkeepers I've got right now are really, really good about asking those questions, and they want to be as informed as possible. So that's really, really good. From the environment I'm trying to create, is I want them to be able to be comfortable, to be able to challenge me and ask questions, versus do this, doesn't matter what it means, I just do it because that's the way I said I'd do it. I walked away from that side of coaching a while ago because I didn't want that to be drill sergeant, like, do this exercise the way it is. Like, for me, it was, I want there to be a full understanding. I've started doing it with my youth goalkeepers too. That's been interesting because some of them, the younger ones might not quite understand a session plan or what things look like. So it is good to start kind of talking them through the why of why, we know what we're doing, and we know what it means and what it's kind of, what topic is leading on to, but why are we doing that? Why do we save the ball the way we do? Why do we step out when we're supposed to step out? Like, getting the why behind it's really important. So I'm trying to paint that picture on Instagram as much as I can, to kind of why I'm doing the goalkeeping the way I'm doing it. And then I've got a couple of people that always reach out consistently to kind of talk. So my buddy Adam Lewis, who's the assistant on the men's side at SMU in Texas, extremely good program. Me and Adam constantly go back and forth about sessions. Literally, our text chain on our phone is literally session plans, videos, challenging each other. Like, so he makes me better as a coach. And then there's a couple of others as well that I've talked to about sessions and stuff over the years. Darren McLeod, who's the USL assistant with Sporting Kansas City, ex-USL goalkeeper, phenomenal goalkeeper, phenomenal coach, up-and-coming coach. Ali Lipscher, assistant at LMU right now, was with NWSL Kansas City and previously with Minnesota. Jordan Bell, who's the director of goalkeeping down at Florida Elite Academy, one of the biggest clubs in Florida, to name a few goalkeeper coaches that I've had conversations with and challenge and kind of go back and forth with. And then obviously the whole community with the United Goalkeeping Alliance as well, kind of, that WhatsApp group, when someone says something, blows up. And people going back and forth about sessions and goalkeepers and stuff. So that's kind of cool. It's cool to be part of that community.
I love this because I think hopefully it's going to connect even more keepers, coaches, et cetera, that are out there that can follow you and then get connected to some of these other great coaches and that community that you mentioned. This has been awesome, and I'm going to shut this thing down. This is Karen with Coach's Corner Chats with Ali Hanif. I'm out. Peace.
Thank you.